Jim, welcome.
Thank you.
In 1996, the U.S. Congress passed the Economic Espionage Act. Please tell us how that's important as a safeguard for U.S. businesses and information.
Well, that act was passed because there was a big hole in our laws that weren't covering proprietary, other sensitive trade secret information that companies had. But now with economic espionage, we can prosecute if we can show either competitors stealing secrets here in the United States to increase their advantage, or a foreign government is stealing those secrets for whatever purpose, whether commercial or military.
Under the Act, have you had successful prosecutions?
Yes, we have. We had our first trial conviction in 2008. Greg Chung was the defendant. He worked for Boeing in Huntington Beach, California. We found out about him from the Chama-se case, who worked for Power Paragon in Anaheim. Power Paragon deals with U.S. Navy contracts. Now, back in the 80s, he actually helped recruit Greg Chung. Greg Chung was a structural analysis engineer for the forward fuselage of the shuttle at Boeing in Huntington Beach. China was trying to rebuild itself quickly because they had closed their space program. They couldn't keep up with the U.S. and the Soviet Union. They reopened it in the 80s, and he was one of the keys to doing that. In June 2005, we started searching trash, and it only took 3 times, 3 weeks of checking the trash before we knew we had another full-blown espionage case.
What was Greg Chung doing that caught your attention during the trash cover?
When we did the trash covers, we saw some strange behavior. He put out the garbage the night before, but he'd only put out the paper trash right before he went to work. And he'd actually be in the trees looking down the street, and then he'd put out the trash. He'd go back amongst the trees and watch some more before he'd get in his car and go to work. We didn't understand it. It was explained later when we actually went through the trash. He had maybe 50 Chinese newspapers that were produced here in the United States. Inside these Chinese newspapers, Greg Chung had inserted dozens, sometimes hundreds of pages of documents he'd stolen from Boeing and was trying to dispose of.
So taking a standard Chinese newspaper, and where he had documents he wanted to get rid of, he simply would interleaf the material in the Chinese paper and then put this in the trash.
That's right.
Once you were able to obtain a search warrant, what did you find when you went inside?
Most of the materials we found were in a living room / den area, and also the hallway, and I should say within the house. Because under the house, which is set on a hill in Orange, we found nearly 300,000 documents that he'd stolen from work.
How could one person possibly steal and conceal 300,000 documents?
Well, he took advantage of a move. The information that needed to be moved, some engineers were trusted to take it from Downey to Huntington Beach, and he took a U-turn or a left turn and took it to his home. We've got pictures of literally hundreds of volumes of notebooks, and we actually showed those photographs to Boeing engineers, asked them about it, and they looked at each other in shock and a little bit of a smile and said, "That's where that stuff is. We've been looking for that for years." So they were shocked. And when our NASA investigator looked at it, he said that what Greg Chung had was the largest private repository of space shuttle information in the world.
And we have every reason to believe that all of this was available, if not was transmitted to China to support their shuttle and space program.
Yes, we believe it was all, in one form or another, given to China.
Did he confess or try to talk his way out of it?
He gave up little things, little details. He did not admit that he ever sent anything to China.
What did Boeing think of Greg Chung?
He was known as being a quiet employee, but a very good one who would follow whatever task he was given, never made any trouble, no problems.
If you had to put a price on the damage caused by Greg Chung, what would that number be?
What's the number that we proved in court? Court decided that our figure of $2 billion was what Boeing lost. Boeing lost some of that with the space shuttle program because China is a competitor, and even more importantly, he didn't work on the Delta IV rocket, which is a heavy lift rocket, the biggest one we have right now in the United States, but he gained access to it. He provided that information to China, and Boeing anticipated huge profits from that, and they dumped a lot of research money into this, and they developed it, and they were looking forward to a lot of launches. China, again, is a competitor that could steal some of that business from Boeing.
Is similar espionage happening in other companies?
Well, I think it's extremely common. Any very large business, there is somebody in that business, I believe, who is taking technology either for themselves to do their own startup business. We see a lot of that, whether it's here or taking it back to China or India or some other country and starting up. Stealing it to go to a competitor and try to get a job, or stealing it for a foreign government.